Hello everybody and welcome back to another video on my channel. As you can probably tell by the title and what is in front of you, I am going to be reviewing these two lovely stories here, The Space Museum and The Chase. Now, God, I haven't done one of these videos for a while. These videos are a lot, I think, more stripped back and just me talking rather than me showing you something or ranking something, for example. I'm going to be doing a DVD review. Now, most fans know that these two DVDs actually come in a box set together. They're not just two random stories that I've chosen. And it's quite funny, really. I never actually intended to watch these two back to back. I decided to put the Space Museum on a couple of, well, actually about a month ago now, actually. So it's been a fair amount of time since I've watched it. But I still can retain some knowledge and information from it. And as for The Chase, well, I randomly picked that one out of this bowl I've got here of classics. Sometimes I just go boop and I'll watch that story. In this case, we've got The Invasion, which actually I did watch recently. But yeah, so it was purely coincidence that I've happened to watch these two stories, but because they're back to back and because they come in a box set, I decided to review them. And as for the actual box itself, I've just found out that it's in the loft upstairs above me, and I'm not really going to crawl up there just to show you the box, but hey, I'm sure it's brilliant and I'm sure you've probably got it anyway. And here's some nice little display figures just to accompany these two DVDs. So yeah, let's crack on with the review and begin with The Space Museum. So I hadn't watched the story in a good while, a few years I think. I think I last watched it in 2016 or 17, so it's been a while. And I remember it being pretty good, you know, average, very good Hartnell. But I decided I wanted to rewatch it because I was in that mood for of Hartnell, and season 2 seemed like a good place to just dip in. And my God, I was actually pretty much blown away. I was really impressed with how well this story holds up. It has some brilliant elements in it, but I think we'll start with the main cast. William Hartnell is great as per usual. He's definitely a brilliant Doctor, not one of my favourites, but I just can appreciate him so much. And as for good start. Ian, Barbara, and Vicky, they're very, very, very good as well. Especially Vicky, she's very nice, and you can imagine Maureen O'Brien behind the scenes being very likable. But yeah, it was brilliant. Obviously, the TARDIS arrives on this planet, and on this planet there's a museum of weird space artifacts. One of these being a Dalek, actually, and the Hartnell actually plops himself inside one of the Dalek casings, and I'm sure you've all seen that iconic photo of Hartnell doing that. Little did they know what they'd be facing on their next adventure, that's for sure. But yeah, it was lovely, and there was these two sort of tribes living on this planet. We've got this sort of represented by these characters on the cover, these sort of young lads, and then these more formal individuals, and they were really good, really enjoyable, and it just made up for a really interesting, unique story. And by far, it's not one of the most action-packed stories. It's not going to absolutely blow you away. However, it is a really enjoyable story and one I actually really recommend. I believe Hartnell might have been on holiday for part 3, I think, and he's not in that at all, and it's just the companions. And it is a bit sort of capture and recapture and escape and that. But I think it's really interesting, and it was that good. It actually inspired me to buy this off of eBay, which I've shown in my birthday collection update a few videos ago, but I genuinely believe it is one of my favourite Target books, if not my favourite that I own. Not because I've read it yet, although I will get around to doing that eventually, but just because it's got beautiful artwork, it's in beautiful condition. I love the black spine, and it's just really good. So yeah, I know that's a bit off topic, but the Space Museum is that good, it inspired me to get this. So, you know, the planet at first appears to be a dry and lifeless planet that they arrive on, sort of serving as a graveyard for spaceships. But I suppose upon further exploration, the Doctor and his companions seem to stumble upon the impossible when they find themselves as the exhibit. And I think that's a really good twist at the end of part 1. And at the time, for when was this, 1965? That must have really sort of got the viewers and thinking, what? But yeah, on the whole, Space Museum is a really good one, and already, if you don't have this box set, for the Space Museum alone, before I even talk about the Chase, it's worth getting. So yeah, that's the Space Museum. And then we move on to The Chase, which is a 6-part dramatic story, a very dramatic story. Now, I finished watching this one today, actually. I've been watching it roughly over the course of a week, 1 part a day. That's how I usually break them up. I very rarely binge watch them all, although saying that, I did do that to Robot recently, in one go. However, yeah, The Chase, it's absolute bonkers. It's absolutely bonkers. But it is really good. It is really, really good. I could talk about each part, and I probably will sort of break it up, but parts 1 and 2, it's not, I wouldn't say they're my favourite parts, but they'd certainly set up the story. Obviously, the Doctor and his companions have this time visualizer when they can go and see any point in time, and it starts off by William Hartnell giving an example of this. They go back to Shakespeare, I think, and Elizabeth I, and then they see Abraham Lincoln, and it's really interesting. So that sets up that, and then eventually they see the Daleks and arrive on this sand planet, and this part is really, not a lot happens actually. I don't think anyone is in the first part apart from the TARDIS team, but I think the sets are really limited in this. I know it is back in the 60s and the budget wasn't huge, but the sets even for Hartnell's days were bad. And then there's a couple of shots where they're running up some hills, but you can tell it's not the actual cast doing that. But then part 2 kicks off and we meet these fish people with some interesting costumes, to say the least. I watched a making of, and the director was really not happy with the way these people looked. But they're exciting enough, they're interesting. And then eventually the Daleks catch up and they escape. And basically the whole story is them it's a chase through space and time. Part 3, they end up in the Empire State Building in New York, which is, as you can see there. And then they also end up in a pirate ship, or the Mary Celeste, as it's more commonly referred to, which is a brilliant little sequence. And I must say at this point, the Daleks are only used for laughs in this story. This is not the Daleks at their most threatening at all. In fact, it's the complete opposite. If you just want a lovely, easy romp, then this is definitely the story for you, because the Daleks, they aren't scary, their voices are funny, you get a little bit where a Dalek is on the Mary Celeste, and it's simply just, well, there's a hole in that, I did know that, but I haven't seen it for ages. Anyway, yeah, the Dalek is just on the Mary Celeste, and it just falls off the edge. I know you can't really see that, but it just walks off the edge, and it's hilarious. There was no reason, it didn't even get pushed, it just simply walked off the edge, which is really funny. And the Daleks, they're so comedic in this, they definitely made me laugh a few times. And then eventually they find themselves on this sort of swamp-like planet, which is really interesting. They spend the night there. In the morning they see this amazing city above them, and that's when they meet the Mechanoids, which, again, a bit like the Daleks, are very funny. Not very threatening at all. They can probably cuddle you to death with their, you can't really see unless you know the Mechanoids, but they have these sort of wires that come out of them and just engulf whatever is in its sight. And there's some funny shots of the Mechanoids just cuddling the Daleks as the Dalek screams in its high-pitched 60s voice. But it's really funny, really funny. I must mention the ending of Ian and Barbara's departure. I think it's really, really well done. Bear in mind this was 56 years ago or whatever, and one of the first ever companion departures apart from Susan's, and it honestly, the writers, directors handle it really well. Hartnell is doing a great job here as well. He's being very stern to them. He doesn't want them to go, but obviously that is only just because the Doctor cares about his companions and he doesn't want to risk them being unsafe, because the way they had to get back was using Dalek technology, which was a 50-50 chance of survival. But anyway, they get back, and it's a brilliant little sequence. We see Ian and Barbara running around London, being home, having the time of their lives, and the story finishes on them on a bus, and we cut back to the Doctor and Vicky being very sad. But the departure is very emotional. In a weird way, it doesn't obviously make you cry, but it's just sort of heartwarming, going, after all that, they're home. And it's very good. It's very good. So overall, I know I've waffled on for quite long enough. Space Museum and The Chase, Would I recommend them? 100% yes, I would. I would even probably go as far as say as their essential Doctor Who viewing, just for the fact of Ian and Barbara. It's 60s Who, you've got some Daleks, you've got the Mechanoids, which are iconic. Not so much the Space Museum, but certainly The Chase is a brilliant one, and it probably is very good. Very, very good. If I had to pick one to prefer, I probably prefer... God, I think I gave the Space Museum and The Chase an 8, I think. I think I gave them both an 8. I don't know which one I'd prefer. It depends on the day, really. But they're very, very good. And that's about it. So if you have these 2 DVDs and you've watched them, please let me know in the comments what you think of them. Do you think they're underrated or overrated? Because I certainly think both of these are very underrated. So there we have it. That was my little review of the Space Museum and The Chase. Don't forget to click the like button if you've liked this, and feel free to subscribe if you want to. And hopefully I'll see you in the next video, whenever that may be. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.